funding a startup, innovative financial models to foster startups. So in this session, we are going to discuss a lot about how financial models could cater to the research and development, how financial tie-ups, funding resources can stimulate the environment in science and technology across the globe. So I would request moderator Mr. Nirakar Saxena, Senior Director FICCI, who is leading the Center for Technology Commercialization at FICCI, to moderate the session along with the panelist, Mr. H.K. Mittal. I believe that he's away for some meeting. Mr. Yogesh Endle, founder Polaris Financial Technology Limited and Nucleus Software Private Limited, board member, School of Inspired Leadership. Mr. Len Denton, international expert on innovation and commercialization, and Dr. Vijay Mahajan, whom you heard last evening. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the FICCI session on funding a startup and innovation. Innovative financial modeling to foster the startup is the theme. And as you heard, we have very distinguished panel. Unfortunately, our government partner had sent a regret because he had been called Mr. H.K. Mittal, but I want to recognize his effort. Mr. Harkesh Kumar Mittal is the head of National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Board. He is the one who had developed the complete innovation ecosystem in the country for last 2 decades. And FICCI had been partnering with the government since 2001, working in this area. He, in this initiative for our distinguished panelists, I'd like to initiate that the Government of India has initiated a wonderful project for funding the startups through SIDBI. And this fund they have set up of close to about a 2,000 crore fund, which is close to about $300 million fund to fund only the funds. It's a fund of funds. It's a fund of funds which is going to fund the complete ecosystem for startup. And this first time ever, the Ministry of Finance, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister for State, Mr. Jayant Sinha, has directed a very unique private control board. A government fund will be controlled by a board which is governed by the private leaders, industry leaders. So that is what the commitment of the Prime Minister Modi and the government and industry bodies is. Today in this session, we would like to hear from our distinguished panelists on their experiences, how they should see when this is, as we mentioned, this is a golden time for startups for the country. Country will never witness such a golden time for building ecosystem for startups in the history of India. And India is at the right platform, right time. So what you feel as an international expert and domain expert, I'd first like to request Mr. Yogesh Endle. Yogesh is a personal mentor of me and also a mentor of FICCI. Yogesh has a privilege of founding 2 public listed companies in the IT space. Everyone knows about Polaris Software Limited. Everyone knows about Nucleus Export. He's the founder of these 2 public listed companies. And he also started a school, a B school, which is called a School of Inspired Learning. Mr. Endle, over to you. In your thought process, how India should build this as a time advantage and also initiate new mechanism for startup funding.
See a lot of young students sitting here in this room, and we welcome you to this session, this environment. And in fact, we should be asking you that how many of you would like to start on your own and what kind of support would you require from others? So how many students here would like to start an enterprise of their own? Just 2 hands. So tell me, what would you like to do? Yes.
Use the mic. Use the mic.
Please. Yes, please go ahead. Okay, press the button.
आ गया
Yeah, it's available to you now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to start a hospital of mine.
What would you like to do?
Yeah, hospital. I would
Hospital
like.
of yours?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
What kind of hospital would it be?
Not a specialty hospital, but yeah, पहले normal hospital हो तो
So
ज़्यादा अच्छा है.
what is the problem that you will be solving? Whose problem you will be solving?
Whose problem
Will
basically?
it be a problem in your neighborhood? Will it be a problem of a village, or will it be a problem in some distant place?
Firstly, I would like to just open a hospital in a suburban area, which is more important just because there are many teams going in the rural areas and avoiding suburban areas. So I would like to just work over there.
Fine, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
let's give a big hand. And I'm sure you have expressed your intention today in front of such a large August gathering. Your intentions will definitely come true. Wish you all the best. Okay. So now an entrepreneur like him, when he wants to start something, where does he get money from? Where does he get starting funds from? That's a big challenge that all of us face. When we started in 80s, there was no concept of venture capital, there was no concept of going to bank was a pain because we were a software company and we had no assets to pledge. And we bought one computer, one IBM PC at that time, pledging our own saving certificates, my father's national saving certificate, got a loan of 45,000 from Syndicate Bank. But anyway, that's an old story. Today we have a whole lot of options available to us. We have incubators, we have challenges, we have impact funds, we have secondary sources of equity available to us. I'm myself a part of a fund called IVCAP, which has used a very unique model to raise fund and give it to entrepreneurs. But then this looks only at those companies which have grown to a certain size and want to go beyond that. And their minimum investments are in the order of 10 crores. But our friend of ours, if he has to start, what does he do? The best way for him is to come and join an incubator. Fortunately, we have a very progressive group of people at DST supporting incubators. But the unfortunate part is we have been able to set up just about 100 incubators so far in the country, and which is extremely limited and is only available in educational institutions like engineering colleges. It's not even gone beyond that. So it's quite a task for us to create that startup ecosystem where a lot of incubators are available, where you can come, you can talk about your idea, you can discuss it, you can share it with others. Second thing is about challenges. So there are challenges that have started happening, but they're happening mostly in bigger locations. Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, and now they've started percolating down to Jaipur and others also. And my belief is that in next 2 to 3 years, if we can take this process of creating innovation challenges or running innovation challenges into different cities and get local entrepreneurs come and talk about their own problem and the problem and a solution to that and how they would like to do it, and if you can give them some seed capital at that stage, that will start a big movement and that will start a big demand pull for creating more of the incubation centers. I'll not go into further detail because let this be more interactive. Let's hear, because Len and Vijay also bring a lot of experiences on how do we kickstart such a entrepreneurial economy.
Yeah, thank you, Yogesh, for your kind, I think, feedback to all of our audience. I'm now going over to Dr. Vijay Mahajan. Dr. Vijay Mahajan.
Hey, you skipped this guy.
No, I know. I am going over to Professor Vijay Mahajan, who is a legend in this space. He is a John P. Harben Senatorial Chair in Business in McCobb School of Business under University of Texas, which is the leading university in the world in this space. Now, Austin, Texas is on the up index on innovation. It is a hard work on policy framework which you guys has initiated. Kindly share your experience, your thought to the Young India startup, which is going to start up and stand by on our Prime Minister vision.
Okay, it's time to go home. Let's give me a clap, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a deep pleasure and honor to be here. May I know where these young kids are from? Which schools have you come from? I can't hear you.
Various colleges around Delhi.
In Delhi? In Ghaziabad. Okay, who else? Where are you from?
Delhi Technological University.
Okay, anybody else?
Agha College of Management and Technology.
Okay, why are you people here?
You want
No, come on, give me an answer. Why are you here? They were giving you free lunch, so you decided to come here. Your teacher told you that I'm going to mark you, attend, go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are very grateful to you because you are the future of this country. And many people come up with a good idea. There are people to help them also. Question is where the money is going to come from. And the India situation now is not what it used to be, like the Yogesh mentioned. But I'm going to actually propose three different ways, how India needs to develop. I think there has to be national pride. It doesn't have to be monopoly of the IITs and the people who come up with the brilliant ideas. I think there has to be a national pride in really helping the younger entrepreneurs to grow. So let me give you an example first. What I mean by that. So for example, when Singapore those of you know in 1962 or 63, Singapore got split from Malaysia, and there was nothing in Singapore at that time. And Lee Kuan Yew became the first prime minister, and he looked at all these marshes, and he said, how the heck I'm going to develop this country? There are no resources there. Absolutely no resources. So a few years ago, he wrote his two books, actually, this is volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 1 was taking from the third world to the first world, meaning that how did he develop a nation, which was a developing country with nothing, not even developing, nothing there, to a country that became a developed nation. And there are many things that he did, but one of the most interesting things that he did, he says, unless there's a national pride, I cannot take this country anywhere. There has to be an ownership, and it's not the ownership of the millionaires and the billionaires. It also has to be an ownership of a small farmer in small village, that he also knows that I'm also invested in this country. And this country has to grow. This is my nation. I have also invested. So what he did is that he came up with a fantastic program where everybody has to have a house. Because when you own a house, doesn't matter how big it is, small, large, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, akka, kacha, doesn't make a difference. When you have that house, you have a pride. Because you're going to protect that house. You're going to protect your neighborhood. Because your house is going to look as good as your neighborhood. Your neighborhood is going to look as good as your locality, the block. And he made it compulsory for people to have flowers. National pride. Okay, so everybody's invested. So I'm going to propose here that in India we think about a very similar program. This is not my original suggestion. This happened a couple of months ago in Kenya, and with a mobile technology. Kenya is a small country, about 45 million people. But interesting enough, and percentage-wise, it looks very much like India. Almost about 70% of their population is also rural. So these people are sitting in small villages somewhere, and they really feel that they have nothing to contribute to this nation, nothing to contribute to the development of this nation. So Kenya is the first country in the whole world. They came up with a fascinating idea of having people buy bonds through mobile technology. So young people, you don't understand what the bonds are? That you put the money and it gives you some interest, it could also vary, it could also trade. So what they did is that they call it M-Akiba, A-K-I-B-A. They wanted to raise $50 million, and this $50 million would be invested in really worthwhile projects. And you did not have to go to a bank to register yourself, and there's a registration fee. So no registration fee. So anybody sitting any part of the country, and as you know, in Kenya, they do a lot of the transactions through the mobile. It's called M-Pesa, which we're also trying to do here in India. And many of the countries are actually copying that. In fact, the USAID forced some of the people, actually helped the telecom companies in Afghanistan to actually have an equivalent M-Pesa because they wanted to get into the corruptions when they pay the salaries. So everything is done through the mobile technology. Going back to this M-Akiba, they raised $15 million, and 2/3 of the country that lives in the villages also participated in that, because the minimum amount was something like $25. So with that $25, you have invested into the fate of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pride. That's pride. Why make this investment a game of the big people? Like you're saying, the banks, incubators. Or for example, we have an angel network. All these people who have made a bunch of money in the IT sector, they want to invest in money. No, let a farmer participate in that. The farmer also puts in $25 and says, you know, I'm investing in this. So ladies and gentlemen, I propose that that guy over there, sir, what is your name, the hospital guy? Abhishek. Abhishek, if you have an option, would you make an investment about 500 rupees to make sure collectively that the innovators or some entrepreneur can be the next Bill Gates of this country? Would you do that?
I would love to do that.
Give him a big hand. So I propose to you, ladies and gentlemen, let's think out of the box. Let's get the whole nation, 70% of the people who live in the villages, and after the harvest is over, this person has money, rather than putting the money in the pillows, he says, I'm going to invest 500 rupees. And we sell them in the denominations. They can set that money under the names of their children. And the rest of the logistics and all that, they can be worked out. That is that how this money is invested, how the bond should be traded. But specifically, let's get the participation, 100% of India, even a coolie, even a three-wheeler, everybody participates. This is my nation, and let's develop entrepreneurship. So this is the first idea I would propose you. Second idea that I would propose you is also, I think it's very clever, but it could be a little bit controversial. My last book, I wrote my first book called 86% Solution, meaning the 86% of the world population that developing countries were to do. Then I traveled in Africa for 4 years. Then I wrote a book called Africa Rising. And after that, I wrote a book on the Middle East. So I traveled in 18 of the 22 Arab League countries, all the way from Sudan to Libya to Mauritania to, I could not go to Iraq because I did not have the permission. I went to all 18 of these countries. I wanted to understand the role of Islam for economic development. And I found something really amazing. Those of you who know about Islam, there's a very, very, very fascinating pillar there called zakat. Islam is the only religion that I know which has a built-in annuity, meaning you have to help your community. You have to give if you can. So what I did there is I went to a lot of zakat houses. So I went to the zakat house in Kuwait. I went to the zakat house in Sudan. I spoke with a lot of the experts. What can you do with the zakat money? And many of the rich people go to the give to the charities. Some people individually wants to help somebody. There's a giving culture there. No, the question there is, can that giving culture be tailored toward the entrepreneurship? Okay, let me give you an example. So what I did is I did a lot of these calculations for the Arab world, since I was writing the book on the Arab world, that how much money, zakat money, is collected every year. Ladies and gentlemen, there is more money, zakat money, is given in the Arab countries than the money given by the Gates Foundation every year. And you can see those calculations, and they were published by the Harvard Business Review in 2013, an article called Understanding the Arab Consumers. And one of these pillars there is zakat money, that how somebody, founder of a religion, who himself was a businessman, figured out that we need to have community-based. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, I do not know how much zakat money is collected in this country, but I'm sure it's not a small amount. I'm sure it's not a small amount. And I'm sure the good-hearted people would like to use that money to help some small entrepreneur like him to start a community-based hospital in some village or some town. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the community-based development. We are all in together. Doesn't matter who we are. We're all in together. So I submit to you that we talk to the Zakat Foundation and say, hey, we know that people are very giving in this country, and we know that they want to work with everybody and help with everybody. Let's do it together. I would talk to one of the experts in Dubai, can we use this money for microfinancing? He said, there's nothing which will stop us to use this money for microfinancing. And this is in my book. This is also in the Harvard Business Review article. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that we talk to the leaders of the Zakat Foundation in this country, and let's see how that money that we use collectively can be developed to develop entrepreneurship in this country and economic development in this country. Third idea, which was talked about yesterday, but some other people were very critical, so I won't spend too much time on that. That is how to use the CSR money, which is required by the government of India now. But I did meet some people in Mumbai last week, where a major private equity company has hired an American entrepreneur to help only the women in Mumbai with the startups. And these ladies, what they told me, were doing amazingly well. Amazingly well. One of them, they were telling me that she's making 2 lakh rupees a month by having a service-oriented business. So I would really submit to you to FICCI, let's produce a white paper which talks about how the CSR money can be collectively used. And ladies and gentlemen, that's community-based development, where everybody can participate. So this is not the IT guys who have made billionaires. This is not the money come from the private equity companies in the United States. This is the whole India, 1.2 billion people say, we're gonna make it. This is our first priority. Let's do it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inspiring us and giving us wonderful leads to initiate new funding mechanism, which is a distance away from the government and institutional framework. I want to put your record for India, this community-based initiative, which has nothing to do with the entrepreneurship or debate here. I'd like to recognize an institution called Shanti Kunj, a very unique model. Shanti Kunj is a model which is taught in IIM Ahmedabad. This is a complete community-based participation, and they worship Gayatri. Way back in 1927, Professor Sharma, who initiated this institution, asked believers to pay 1 rupee a day. And Professor Mahajan, today, with your grace, we will be celebrating 100 years in next 10 years.
Wow.
We have 128 lakh believers, 12.8 million people believers who are paying a 1 rupee a day for that institution.
Let's give a big hand.
So if this kind of initiative, as you rightly directed and given a vision, if we can divert this kind of fund for entrepreneurship development ecosystem, this will be a most welcome initiative, and especially when you're talking about the rural entrepreneurship. Today, all the big programs are focusing more on urban entrepreneurship. India, we have, friends, major rural challenge. And your guidance to Government of India, your guidance to FICCI will go a long way. I have taken the record of all the 3 points. And thank you very much for giving this input. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to move forward to one of our best international experts, Mr. Len Denton. Len has been working in this space for many decades, and he has experience in his own city, Austin, in Texas, various kind of instrument, mechanism, building culture of entrepreneurship, and especially your statement yesterday on Technopolis, creating a culture between technocrats and business institutions. Especially you must highlight that how your society, they welcome systems of innovation, startups, and they're willing to invest, help as a mentor, as a fund, and also your crowdsourcing initiative, which is the most welcome initiative in the world, to Mr. Len Denton.
Thank you, Nirkar. Dr. Mahajan is a really hard act to follow. I don't know how he did it, but he stole all 3 of my ideas. So now I'm going to have to wing it. Excellent conversation, excellent ideas, Dr. Mahajan. Nirkar and I have been working on this innovation thing here in India for 10 years now. And things have changed a lot since we first started. The program that we've operated here together has been able to avail itself of some financial methods for funding, like the Indian Angel Network, and they're very closely tied to the India Innovation Growth Program, and we're very thankful for that. Also, the Technology Development Board has been a big player in helping move some of these technologies forward. So that's always been helpful. And the government has been a big partner in it. DST actually funds the program to, in partnership with Lockheed Martin to move this thing forward. And in the process, over the last 10 years, we've probably served how many? Over 1,000 innovators or more. And so it's a good start, but it's only the beginning. And a key thing that I would say about it is that in the 10 years, there has been a lot of changes here in India, and a lot of change around the world, actually, in the way that startups are funded, but here in India as well. There are a lot of new things coming along, a lot of new funds, a lot of venture capitalists have moved offices and built offices in Delhi and Bangalore and Pune and Mumbai and Chennai, and so it's improving and it's changing. But one thing I want to make clear: I am not an expert in Indian financial provisions and the way that and the way the government regulations operate. So I'm going to leave that to my colleagues here. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit more philosophically about startups and funding startups in general. I will bring some of our experience from the United States into play here. My goal here is to talk about innovation and how we can use the arriving new innovations in finance to help fund startups going forward. If you talk to most entrepreneurs, they're going to say there is not enough funding. I hear that all the time from people that we talk to. Every time you get into a conversation with entrepreneurs or a large body like this, there's a general sense that there's not enough funding. And my thought about that is, in general, that's true, but there's always funding for the guys that are ready. And so that's one of the things that I want to talk about. I also want to talk about how you can move forward, even in a space where there's not a lot of funding. And I realize in certain regions of India, there's less funding than there is in Silicon Valley, because it's exactly the same in the United States. There's a lot more funding in Silicon Valley than there is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is in the very heart of the United States. It's like the capital of flyover country. We call that flyover country because it's midway between both coasts and nobody goes to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But you know what? There's a thriving startup culture in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And they're doing things. Where are they getting the money from? From the kinds of ideas that Dr. Mahajan is talking about. So in some ways, this localized funding of startups is a global issue. And there's a lot of innovation going into play all over the world with that. One of the things I would say to the entrepreneurial crowd is one of the things you can do to prepare for that moment when you need it is to need less. A well-planned startup should be able to move forward with a little bit of money, not a lot of money. And the way you do that is, for instance, you focus on making sure you're solving the right problem and that you've done all of your homework to make sure that you really understand it so you can get to the point in as straight a line as possible with as few pivots as necessary. One of the other things I would say, and it's very popular in the culture right now, in the startup culture, is focus on building an MVP. Do you guys know what an MVP is? Minimum viable product. Are you familiar with that? That idea comes from a guy in the US named Eric Ries. It's kind of taking the American startup scene by storm. The idea here is that you strip out as much functionality from your initial product as possible, even to the point where he has said this himself, that you're embarrassed to ship it. But it's enough to get started, and it's enough you can conserve capital, and you can get it out there so that you can do the most important thing that entrepreneurs have to do, and that is to establish market traction. You've got to get it out there so that people can start seeing it and playing with it and saying, yeah, we like this, but we don't like that. And you can move quickly after that, and you pivot after you get your minimum viable product out there. But the point is, a minimum viable product is a minimum viable financial requirement as well, so you need less to get started. The other thing is, a lot of startups are self-funding in the United States today. They're doing that through things like what I call the 3 Fs, and this is a traditional thing in the US, the 3 Fs. That stands for friends, family, and fools. People that are willing to invest in your very risky little startup before it's really got any traction. But there's also a lot of other financial innovations going on in the U.S. They've just approved, the U.S. Government has just approved something called Title III, which is crowdfunding. And it's not really come online yet, but crowdfunding is exactly what it sounds like. It allows small, uncertified investors to invest in startups and you can create these markets where startup companies are actually selling equity stock to uncertified small investors for small amounts of money. Now, on the one hand, the entrepreneurs are really, really excited about this because it's going to be another source of money. It's going to be able to be focused on things like community investments and things of that nature. There will be all kinds of markets set up. I can imagine that the good folks in Cedar Rapids, Iowa will set up a local exchange to buy stock shares in local companies, that kind of thing. There are also critics that say that it's going to be an absolute free-for-all and they're not sure what it's going to wind up being. It hasn't begun yet, but we're going to watch it very carefully. So there's that great opportunity to do that. I'm a free market enthusiast, and I believe that the best way to fund startups is through private investment, and that the government should be the investor of last resort, not the investor of first resort. And so I'm really encouraged by all these things that I see where they're allowing more and more private investors to have access to these innovative companies. That's going to drive innovation as we go forward. And yesterday I spoke a lot. I spoke about the need for us to really make sure that we've got a well-designed startup. We talked yesterday about the high failure rate of startups. You know, you can read the literature. For the last 30 years, the failure rate's somewhere around 90%. That indicates that probably some startups got funded that shouldn't have. Some startups probably got funded too early. So the things that we can do, we can really ensure that we've built a good startup. We can ensure from the educational perspective that we're training our entrepreneurs correctly and that we're ensuring that they're focused on problems more than technology at first. That's one of the big keys. Most technologists, most entrepreneurs I talk to are really, really, really focused on their technology. And their customer is kind of theoretical. And what I would suggest, one of the best things we can do to improve the startup success rate in India, which is one of the things I'd really like to be a part of, is to focus in the early days of that startup more and more on who your customer is and what their very, very specific needs are. And then once you've got a good, solid target built on that, now you can easily come back and adapt your technology to that. And the MVP helps drive that sort of a thing too. It's kind of an implementation of getting toward that. So I'll conclude by saying that, as I said yesterday, it's early days for Indian innovation, and it's an exciting time. If you think about innovation, the innovation cycle is as a 24-hour day. India is at about 6 o'clock in the morning. You've got the whole day ahead of you. It's very exciting. There are infrastructures coming together. There are new tools that are going to be available to you as you go forward and you come out of school or you launch your startups that are going to give you new capabilities that you haven't had before. And it's just a great time to be there, and I would encourage you to dig in and learn all that you can about the business side of a startup, because so many of the entrepreneurs that I know and that we've worked with, again, it's more of a technology venture, but in fact a startup is a launch vehicle. It's a delivery vehicle to take your new product or service to the marketplace. It's a business, and we need to be a lot. Most of the startup guys that I talk to are real heavy on technology and real light on business. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you to balance it. You know, we need some more business thought in these early stages of the startups as well. So that's what I'd like to say, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, dear Len, for sharing your very wide experience in this space. I hope this should be useful for our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go for an open the floor for the question, as I mentioned that from the government side, our respected partner, Mr. H.K. Mittal, is not here, but he has requested me to kindly inform the audience on the various government initiative and the funding mechanism which he has initiated from the Department of Science and Technology to record. So on behalf of Mr. Mittal, I'd like to mention that under the National Science and Entrepreneurship Board, under the DST, they have set up close to about 97 incubator, primarily working in education institution. They also have 2 incubators in the private sector, where you startup companies can reach. You can go to the site called nstdedv.org, and it's called National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Board, and see the list and the contact point. If you are a startup company in the incubator, then through the Technology Development Board, there is an assistance scheme of 25 lakhs, which government assists in helping you to build your company. From the government side, they have also provide you a concessional service tax. There is no need of paying a service tax up to 50 lakhs in these incubation centers, and this limit is going to increase to 100 lakhs shortly. On Department of Science and Technology, as a ministry, initiate number of funding in the programs which can help startups, and those are, they have a program with us, FICCI, called Millennium Alliance and Indian Ocean Growth Program. They have a program with other chamber called Geeta. Then they have a program called Intel for IT, specific to the IT startups. For aeronautic startup, they have a program for Boeing. For FMCG startup, they have a program with Procter & Gamble. And you are seeing how DST has opened all Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Intel, Procter & Gamble on their board. That's what the government has did on their side. SIDBI has set up an inspiration fund, as I mentioned, of 2,000 crore. It is a fund of fund. People who are running the fund. Amitabh is here. He's already running a fund. He's a beneficiary of that fund, which is initiated. So I think these are the few initiatives from the government side. Our startups and students should take benefit. And I am recording the statement what he has mentioned me to share. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to open the floor for maximum 5 questions, because we are running late of the next session. If anyone has a question to our panelists or to me, he can raise the hand, ask the specific question, and then they will address your queries. Yeah, you have asked. You already asked. You wanted to ask again? Okay, please go ahead. Yeah. Recognize yourself and then question to which panelist.
Hello, I am Dr. Partha Foundation. My question is, there are many socially relevant and socially applicable technologies out there which can be promoted at the grassroots level in order to empower the poor people. But what are the schemes on the part of the government to promote those technologies at the grassroots level?
For the social innovator, I can answer on behalf of our respected panelist. Mr. Mittal is not here. There are various programs which you can seek the benefit. For specific for social sector, the government of India has a foundation called NIF, National Foundation Primary Housing Frugal Innovation at IIM Ahmedabad. Professor Anil Gupta, you can connect. If you have any innovation which you feel can create an impact, you can contact NIF, which is part of the DST, and they will like to link your idea or innovation or prototype to, if validation is provided, take it forward. We have with FICCI, we have a program with the Department of Science and Technology, Specific Technology Development Board, where USAID, World Bank, UK is our partner. We run a program called Millennium Alliance, and this is a fund of $50 million which we have set up. And idea of to identify a game-changing innovation in the social space, and this is across sector which you can take benefit. Similarly, there are various government schemes. You can go to our CTEC site, Center for Technology Commercialization site. We have listed 31 areas where any rural entrepreneur or social entrepreneurs can seek benefit from the government seed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yours.
System. And so my question is regarding the hand holding. We promote that there's a lot of hand holding going on, but there are already around 14 organizations which are individually running in the country, and 3 international organizations which have penetrated India, let's say EBTC and US Indo Technology Center. So should we first prepare a system where we are hand holding with these organizations so that we have a system which would invite all the entrepreneurs or all the innovators to commercialize their technology? Or should we initiate a new startup or these schemes? Like every day we are launching as many number of schemes as we could, but how about those which are already existing systems? Because yesterday when I spoke to one student in IIT Delhi exhibition from IIT Indore, so the student informed me that still they are commercializing their technology by directly communicating with the manufacturers. They do not have a proper system, or they themselves are innovator. We expect that an innovator wouldn't have a lot of knowledge about technology commercialization. So where is the hand-holding lacking in our country?
I think the government and from the private sector side, we as a chamber has built a system. You should be aware following things. You please note down. Specific, if you are an ICMR fellow or researcher, you should take the benefit of a program which is initiated by Indo-US Science and Technology Forum called Stanford Biodesign Center at All India Medical Institute. They actually invite application from aspirant like you. Then from the ICMR, very shortly, FICCI would be initiating a program on hand-holding, ICMR research for the commercial benefit, and this platform will be enabled in next 4 to 5 months. You can seek that platform to take it forward.
Yes, so this is very well appreciated.
Yeah, so third scheme, you can note on a site called India Innovation Growth Program, in which health sector is very, very important. This program is promoted by FICCI and IC Square and Lockheed Martin. You can register your innovation, and if this innovation gets selected, you get hand-holding support not only from FICCI, but from international partners like Mr. Len Denton, University of Texas, Stanford Business School. So these kind of enabling platform, we can give you a list of those, and those ideas you can share and take it forward. Ma'am, after the panel, you can discuss me if you have specific questions. Any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and my name is Atul Gangwar. I am an entrepreneur myself, and working in technology space, which includes telematics and revenue. Once you apply, how much time actually typically takes? My understanding so far is it takes almost 6 months to 1 year to get the funds finally back to you. As the entrepreneur, should we budget that as part of our funding? because once we have the prototype ready or we are talking about going to market, we cannot wait for 6 months or 1 year to get the funding in place. That is number one. And number two, I would like to get a little more detail about the SIDBI fund, because it was announced in April once the finance minister announced it. It has taken some time. I have been following up with SIDBI, but I think the awareness is lacking when dispersing it. So these are the couple of questions. Thank you.
So I can answer the SIDBI part, and then from the other part, my mentor, Mr. Yogesh, will answer. SIDBI has initiated a fund called Aspiration Fund, which is initiated by Ministry of Finance. And now this fund is a fund of fund. It will not go to the direct entrepreneur or innovator. You have to approach to those funds who have taken the benefit of this fund. And let me tell you the record that out of this 2,000 crore, which was given as a budget by the Ministry of Finance to the SIDBI. Now this fund is being controlled by leaders of the industry and leaders in the government in this space. Mr. Mittal is on the board, then we have Mr. Kiran Karnik on the board, we have Mohandas Pai on the board. So there are 5 people on the board, out of which they have already spent 750 crores. Look at the pace at which the leaders has disbursed those funds to the leading right fund managers. So you as an aspirant can reach to those fund managers who have already been benefited. And fortunately we have Amitabh Srivastava who is sitting, he will be in the dais next session. He is also a beneficiary of that fund. So those kind of fund managers can help you taking it forward. Now second question on your time we have a mentor, Mr. Yogesh Handle, will give you enlighten that why it takes so time and how we can speed up this process. We agree with you.
Any of these government schemes, as you have rightly mentioned, they will take 3 months, 6 months, and at times even beyond that. And it's not that they have not been useful. I know many entrepreneurs who have really benefited from TDB's commercialization funding. So you have to put it in your plans that if you are applying today, this money is likely to be available only after 6 months. Okay, so that much you have to put in. And second, about this fund of funds, I think that is likely to be a faster process, because these funds, the distribution funds, are being managed by the private groups who have set up processes which are quicker to turn around, quicker to respond. This fund of funds, the kind of funds they have given money to, each of those funds have also brought their own money from other sources. So if SIDBI has given them 50 crores, they have also arranged another 100 crores from other places, so they're sitting with a kitty of 150 crores. Those funds would take decisions much more quickly and will tell you whether you fit into their criteria or not much faster also. Thank you.
So I think with these I'd like to close and
Can I just?
yes, Mr. Radhakrishnan, please.
I have a question for both.
Personally, I think we should minimize the role of the government. Government doesn't know anything about entrepreneurship. And I'm sure some of the people will get offended here. Entrepreneurs in the US do not wait for the Republican Party to have a president. Entrepreneurs in the US do not wait for the Democratic Party to have a president. I'm sure Bill Gates never thought of that. I'm sure Michael Dell didn't think of that. I'm sure when Michael Dell started assembling the computers in dormitory, he did not ask somebody how many government schemes are available. That's the wrong culture. Entrepreneurship should be really good. I'm sorry? No, I mean, I'm saying from our perspective, instead what's going on in the US. I mean, I don't know the India situation. I think government probably needs to intervene. We do have actually the government programs, for example, Small Business Administration. We have programs which actually help the various ethnic groups. But I think it needs to be really driven. It needs to be really driven by the entrepreneurs who know to be entrepreneurs. There has been a lot of participation from the private sector. Like for example, he mentioned Procter & Gamble, and so many of those people are involved. In India also, you can see that many of the private equity companies from the US are here. who are actually supporting many of these entrepreneurs here. Government, at the end of the day, is there to govern. I think that my father did not wait. He was a successful entrepreneur during the British area in Jammu. He had a family. He was 22. He already had 3 kids. So he had to feed those kids. And he did become an entrepreneur. And I'm sitting here because of him. And because how my mother encouraged him to become an entrepreneur and take those risks. So I think you can have as many government schemes as you want, which nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, entrepreneur by definition means entrepreneur.
Well said, well said. As I said earlier, I'm an enthusiast for market-based funding, which means non-governmental funding. In the US, most entrepreneurs do their best to avoid the government at all costs. The government tends to slow them down, to burden them with all kinds of regulations that cost money. One of the big concerns today about this new source of crowdfunding is that the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is one of the most feared of the government branches in the United States, is going to impose all kinds of very costly regulations on these very, very small companies. The winners will be the lawyers. So those are the kinds of things, just to echo what Dr. Mahajid said, that's one of the key attributes of the culture of entrepreneurship in the United States. Now, if it's 6 o'clock in the morning here, I said yesterday it was 2 in the afternoon for the United States. Still early in the day, still lots of time to get things done. But we have learned a lot, and there are things that we can do. Our startup culture has a 90% failure rate. That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, that's the culture that built Google and Microsoft and Oracle, and you could name 100, you could name 500 companies. But that means that there are 500,000 companies out there that failed, or that never really made what they were trying to do. And so the things that we're focused on is trying to find ways to reduce that failure rate just a little bit. And the lean startup is an idea that came out of Stanford and the Silicon Valley culture there that said, you guys are putting too much effort in up front before you touch the market. So one of the things that I would say, one of the things we've learned in the United States startup culture is you must get to market much faster and much lighter than you have in the past. You don't build version 1, 2, 3 into your software system and then launch it for your customers to see for the first time. One of the things that we advocate, and that we advocated through IC Squared and at the programs that we operate around the world, is early market contact. And that takes the form of many forms. That takes getting out of your office and going and talking to real customers. That means MVP. Put out a scary, lean prototype product, early product, enough to get the customers up and running, but realizing that there's another version that's going to come right behind it after you've had a chance to test it in the field. Those kinds of things reduce risk, and the startup is a risky vehicle to begin with, and everything you can do to reduce risk is a good thing. And at the other thing that I would say is that there is a much more profound focus on the customer and what the customer needs are, and that has been developed over time as well. It's not so much about the technology. There's lots and lots and lots of technology around. What it really is about someone who has read and interpreted the customer better than anybody else and delivered an adequate solution to a very well-defined customer problem. That's what wins in the marketplace today. And speed. Speed is the other thing. The faster you get there, the faster you start learning. You'll hear people talk about this often, fail fast. That sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's really true. You fail fast, The other thing that is, when I talk to foreigners in the U.S. environment, when they come over and they're talking with us, one of the profound differences is the tolerance for failure. And I think Dr. Johnson mentioned this yesterday morning in his inaugural, while he was speaking during the inaugural session. The United States has a real high tolerance for failure. In fact, in the Valley and in Austin, failure is kind of a badge of honor. Oh, you've been there once. It's okay. Well, you fail, you get up, you make sure you've learned your lessons, and you move on and you do it again. Just don't make the same mistake twice. And so those are the really things that we've learned. And I think that it's a constant learning. It's a very dynamic thing. It's really closely tied to the culture. It won't be exactly the same thing in India as it is in the United States. There's a lot of growth in the entrepreneurship scene in Chile, for instance, in South America. Very active, totally different than what we have in the U.S. Some similarities, but it's not just a replication of what's going on in Silicon Valley. So anyway, you got to make it your own. Take the best practices that you find, make sure that they apply to what you're trying to do. Don't just blindly do what other people do, and make it work. As long as you've got a real clear vision of who your customer is and what they really need and what their pain is and how you can solve it, all the rest of the stuff is details. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Denton, for your wonderful, wonderful remark. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to conclude this session as we are running late. I request Swati and the team to kindly announce the next session. Thank you very much, Professor Mahajan. Thank you very much, Len, and thank you, Yogeshi, for your presence.